All right, welcome to SUSE QE Tools Workshop at um, end of November. Today we had planned as a topic talk or to collect a best practice. It was a proposal by Matakis. Yeah, it will be a bit open. There's no presentation third. And first I would like Janis, you brought up the topic, so maybe you can tell us what would you like to know? What is it like to collect or
Good morning. What's the topic again?
QA best practices? That's how we phrased it based in. So, um, what
Yeah,
what questions would you like to have answered? So you are a QA engineer, right?
yeah. I just when I was thinking about that, I was seeing different approaches and perspectives and expectations. So I was thinking
Okay.
what each one thinks best practice.
Yeah. So anyone that would like to share their view on what they consider best practice, how to approach or how we approach QA and just maybe you don't want to call it the best practice, but maybe this is just your way of working. So how do we address things? Mostly this audience being QA and
Can I bring a recent topic?
sure, if you have like an examples or
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting also for
yeah,
some of the people. So it's about um, when you find a bug or failure, do you open a ticket immediately or you first investigate and um, then file the bug?
okay, that's
That was a ticket also in progress, right? So
yeah,
I
exactly that. There was one ticket related. What should our processes look like, or what do our processes look like? So I think it's an important part. Where at which point do we say like, okay, now I can actually report the ticket. If you do that too early, then maybe false issues, fraud issues turns out to be not real problems after all, or it's missing information that you could add afterward. Um, if you report it too late, maybe even you forget it, and then it will only be built sometime later, or missing a critical time window where we need with that influence by the opinion. So my approach is yeah, thanks for the dated ticket about how to find find that process. So my experience is that I would rather report it too early afterward, react or close it again in case it turns out to be an issue. If I don't have that much information, of course, we all want to provide as much information as possible so that at best an issue can already be fixed right away and it's clear in which cause to be a problem. But on the other hand, what I think we state early that just the fact that an issue was found and talking about conveying certain updates of products, like there's a new build of a product, and you only want there's no problem, then maybe just that information is helpful. Even though we don't know exactly what's the root. Okay, what else? What other points? Yeah, the opinions from others on.
Uh, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that in the review process, the important task of the reviewer is to do some kind of triage of the issues that are occurring.
When you mean review process, you mean review of automated tests in OpenCase, right?
Exactly. Exactly. If I go on duty, then and the important issue or the important thing to mention here is that it's also one of the tasks of the reviewer to try to minimize the amount of noise, and it means that one should open a ticket as soon as possible because not only this allows engineers to work on it, but it is also a way of communicating to other people that someone has already looked at this issue and has identified it as something that we need to do there. However, it is also important to at some point learn which issues are just infrastructure problems, which issues are just the things that we know about. They haven't found a solution, and we must not create tickets for those because there are also the noise on the backlog, which potentially stays there for weeks until someone wastes time in order to investigate a thing. It might be not recent anymore, and it's yeah. So as early as possible. However, try to also have a quick look if this is a known issue and if it can be solved by or restarting the job or by poking the right people who can take care of the infrastructure.
Anybody else on that?
Can you hear me?
Yep, go on.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Felix is saying. So I normally do some small investigation. I don't need to probably see or understand the root cause, but maybe have some small investigation and see, okay, this is something very sporadic, so probably a restart will fix it. Or maybe, yeah, I mean, if it's a heavy job, probably you don't restart it. Yeah, it's like a personal decision in the end, but yeah, normally if something is sporadic, I restart it by normally. Then yeah, so if there is something which is not clear to me, I probably create a ticket. But of course, you first need to see if there's already tickets created for this or not. So you really need to spend some time in
Right.
progress and also in the history of the jobs, right?
That's
So
that
it's
that's
not
that's
like
one.
a yes or no, right?
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
That's true. Trying to understand, is that issue known already, or maybe what do we have related to that area? Maybe you find something and say like, maybe this is just an additional detail which you can add as information to an already existing report. So how do you guys find? How do you go about searching for known issues and trying to find if an issue was already reported or what's already known in an area, both for, let's say, for Bugzilla bugs as well as in progress tickets? How do you do that?
I would say there is no clear way to do it, but normally you ask people. Or first you search in progress, so you go there and then you type some string, some key strings
Mhm.
probably, and if there is nothing which matches, probably there is no ticket created. But then you ask people, and I don't know, this got created last week because yeah that failed,
Right.
so we have this ticket for that. If not, then you just create it, and of course that applies to Bugzilla. But I normally first check on progress, and if it's something that, smells fishy, like a product bug, then of course I go to Bugzilla.
Um, while
Others?
while others can bring their experience in, I would like to share how I'm doing that, like technical, how I do
Hmm.
that. On tell me if there's more different ways. So, for example, we have the OpenCase test issue. and there are actually two ways. So there's either this way, so I can search for, say, let's see, are there any tickets with contact? What I find here is I find multiple tickets. What I can see from this page already is date, the ticket with a number, and know that with the number that one is older than that one. It also shows closed tickets or like resolved and closed. It does show them. We can filter it to say only open only, right? And also we can select if you want to search attachment, file name, description, like maybe. And also what you can see is that it matches the ticket, which doesn't have contact subject, but in. And maybe this is already getting too noisy for what I want to look for. So I find 22 tickets, and I would over multiple pages, and I don't know like one is more because all like closed. So then the alternative which I use, say I choose directly filter. So here we can see that it shows all only all open tickets, and also keep in mind that the previous search page by default is also up by default. This does not. Now I can take a look and look for contact, and I can find like, okay, actually there are 2 tickets. I see the number, so I see that that one is like, I would say like 2 years old maybe from the number, and that one is from the past couple of months. I don't know when this was updated or anything like that. If I would like to take a look in sub projects, because I know that many sub projects, I could say sub project like any, or I select and say now only take a look if it's part of containers and QEast or the main project. And then if I search and then find like, okay, or I select any. Let me try another example, Podman. So with Podman, we can find more tickets, and we can also find that, yeah, okay, some are in the main project and some are in the. Okay, other approaches that you guys use for searching for open, known, or related issues?
No, but a quick remark here. It might be a real trivial issue, but keeping the template when you file a test issue is really sometimes useful. This how the subject is made. This test fails in test and then a short description. That if we keep that consistent, that makes it sometimes really easier to find issues instead of customizing the subject there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So where we have, of course, incorporated that is in the OpenQA feature. For example, if let's say as you can all this nicely reviewed process works there, that all failures have taken reference. If I would just go to a test, and let's assume that it would not yet be something here, find something fishy, click that report. But this is the template that you mean, right?
Yeah, Oli, the only problem of this is that you cannot really change the project. So you need to save it and then change the
Yeah,
project
that's
afterwards. So what I normally do is I create it this way, and then I just copy paste the well, normally I just create it there and then I move it to the project, and then, or I just copy paste the text to the project directly. So when I have
right. So you would click the link, copy paste that entry, but
yeah,
don't save it yet, then open. Ah, I
exactly.
see. Okay.
But or just sometimes I just create it there and then move it
Well,
later. But
creating and moving that for me sounds perfectly fine.
But it would be nice to have some kind of yeah,
configuration per group.
yeah. So you can really, or if not configuration per group, that you have the ability to create a
Yeah,
ticket in or
actually,
select the project you want to create it to.
right. So the alternative is, if you select to create a new issue and you are not within a certain project, then you can select the project. The problem is that, I mean, this happens from time to time, every couple of weeks. Someone creates a ticket, and by default, the default project is the OpenSUSE release process, because
Oh.
that's like an instance-wide default. It might not make much sense anymore, but OpenGate test is certainly not the only user. So here you can select it. If you make the mistake and have it created in the ops process. Funny thing is, most of us don't have the permissions to move it out of that project. But yeah, that would be an alternative. So maybe it's possible to what we do here, what we have as OpenGA feature is we just open a URL, and all the information that you have in here, which is filled, comes from URL. And in the URL we write the text in a coded way, so it's a lengthy URL, but in the end everything is in the URL. So maybe it would be possible. What would happen? I just open a URL which doesn't have that. Yeah, see, now I'm in this selection, and I would be able to select the project. I not like to change the OpenGate like that, because then everybody would file by default. So can we say issue project equals OpenGate test or something? Nope, doesn't work. I guess we need to use project ID. Who can help me? What's the project ID of OpenGate tests? And where am I able to find that?
So you don't want the name, but the ID?
I guess I need the ID. Yeah. So let me. I'm switching to terminal. I'm getting. Oh,
How about just use ID 1 and see what happens?
that's a good idea if one exists. So I don't know that, but I think we can do better here. The JSON view of one ticket, I can find that the ID is 36.
Nice.
Oh, 36 maybe? Nope, doesn't work like that. So yeah, I don't know. If you find out how we can, pre-select the right project field in the generic shading, then that should be easy to do. By the way, where is that template find? So I want to have other proposals for that. In OpenGA, there is a templates web API, which has HTML templates. Okay, and that one includes a section branding. And within OpenSUSE, there's one page which is called external reporting. And within external reporting, this is where you can find how it's currently created. Fill all these fields, like from product history and so on. Create the text. Here's the description text, which you then put in bug reports as well as in progress tickets. And here you can see these fields which we select, like subject and description. Maybe we would be able to add one line here. And this is the URL which we're using. Yeah, okay. Just an idea.
I think the template is quite okay. I'm happy with this. And I like also that keeping the title the same for all the tickets that are bug reports makes sense, because then it's easier to filter stuff, right? So when you just search for test fails in, and then you get a list of
Right.
tickets that are bug reports. I like it this way.
Okay, cool. Yanis?
Yeah, for example, one small comment for this. There are a lot of tickets when you create from OpenQA that you take the template and they submit this. There is no information. It's just the title is it fails on Podman,
Yeah,
and this, for example, for me, it's a bad practice.
right. It is. Yeah,
Because even the way that you demonstrate that you do the searching doesn't give you, maybe you're gonna miss something.
Yes, but as a starting point, it helps. My suggestion was test fails in test and then provide a description. So not only the description, but add it to the end of the subject.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I also support this. Mm.
But
Because
this,
then it's done. I just put test fails in Podman, and this is very generic. So it would be nice, like test fails in Podman. Timeout. Blah 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 blah. Yalla
yeah.
yalla. So you
We,
have
we 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 we
some small
tried it.
information.
Yeah, we tried it to make it more explicit in the template to have some kind of filler texting, capital letter, something like you can still read this text, place it, something. And
Mm-hmm.
Boyd was saying, nice people replace this text. Then someone consider that of it. It's a bit tricky because if you know a better way how we can, it's actually a generic question that I have. How can I in text make it explicit which parts need to be placed or extended, ensuring that people really see that, so that afterwards you don't end up with put your name here, and this is what people then report as tickets with put your name here instead of their real name. You know what I mean?
I would argue you can't actually know the correct thing to put in there because you may not have the details, right? Or you may find out later that you are wrong anyway.
That
So
that can
I feel
also
like
happen. Like
you
if I
shouldn't
really
you
don't
shouldn't
know
maybe try
anything,
too hard.
that's the only place where it's really hard, where it's actually not possible to exchange something is description of bug reports in Bugzilla, like but we can change the summary after creation. Also, because I think it's fine. Someone creates a ticket, test fails in Podman, and then afterwards edits the ticket again, and that's more like yeah, fails in Podman, and then maybe that second part was added later. The benefit of coming up with a good subject already in ticket reporting time is that when when people look for notifications like by email or by some kind of chat bots or RSS feed, then the initial subject matters. Then by the way, for people that don't know yet, in Bugzilla also very search for stuff. For example, you could write summary : test fails in, and here you find all. Actually, in Bugzilla, we prepend the word OpenQA, so we can also look for tickets which had been likely using the same template. Summary OpenQA test fails in, and find these here. And if you want to combine that, for example, like a reporter, they also, and I find, wait, I probably different, yeah. Okay, bad, sorry, Jose, bad example. I should have
Yeah,
selected. It, probably one or the
That's
other.
fine. It's missing there's one A which shouldn't be there, but yeah.
Yeah, I tried both variants, but anyway, for
Oh,
example,
okay.
here you can find 20 bugs which are open where I'm the reporter and want to look for all, because also resolved fixed are already excluded, and resolved fixed doesn't that product below. Yeah, we can OpenQA test fails. Okay. So what other practices do I have?
Oli, I just found, I sent in chat the correct URL, for example, for public cloud. You were trying to specify the project after in this query part, but it actually supposed to be in URL part. This is, it's just, of course, it's not the full URL. So to get the template, which will create a ticket in the public cloud project, you
Yeah.
need to just put the public underscore cloud. So just go to
Yeah,
the
of
bar.
course. That's what we use for OpenQA tests already. The question was, can we change the ticket creation dialog? Because also here, if I would go to new, I could create a ticket in public cloud, but I cannot from this dialog. I cannot in this
You
dialog
can,
change it
you
to
can,
another project.
you can, if you will go in the URL and in the part where it says public cloud, you will type OpenQA tests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I'm on it on one of this template. Let's see. That should work. Yeah.
Yeah, this should work. I just tried it already. It's working.
All right. So I'm showing that then that screen. So what I'm
Yeah, now in this projects, after projects, put public underscore cloud, and you will get the same template, but with
it's a bit finicky, I would say, and not as easy as selecting a different field in a down menu. But in
yeah,
principle,
but
that's for
we
power
can
users that's
also
possible.
yeah, but we can also think about adding such feature in OpenQA. So OpenQA will differentiate this URL by group. Actually.
That's a good idea, and that is certainly possible because, of course, we already distinguish a bit. Let me show you here. For example, if I click on creating this bug icon, and I'm starting from an Open 15.4 test, so that's one of the brand new Leap 15.4 tests, it's already selecting OpenSUSE distribution as the product. The version is not correct. I guess someone implemented that code in a template not completely correct, but anyway, I mean that's easy to change. The important part is that the product is selected correctly, because also that cannot change anymore already. That's needs to be selected correctly by URL already. Yeah, and also we fill all the other data, build, parse out the last good and such. So already a bit intense. All right. Which brings me to the content of the template. And this template is actually, well, I put it into OpenQA because, as we can see, by automation, we can enforce a convention better. That works. I would like to point out that we have on certain wiki pages already templates. So in that case, let me start with the parent. Okay, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but let's start from the top. There's the QA project. Okay, on progress OpenSUSE org projects. From the QA project, there's a wiki, and the wiki includes, for example, the test results overview report, so where you can find reports, as well as Maxilla queries, which I suggest to you. So there there should be no need for any milestone build or anything to point to anything different but that bug list, because all the product must be obviously open source, right? And if they are marked as blocker, ship stopper, bugs there, they will show up in the query. It also has this tools team description. So every time we do a workshop and we show, it also shows how we work. So that's like, let's say, a product independent process. Now on the OpenQA wiki, which is one sub-project, it does include some information about, of course, about OpenQA itself, not the documentation of OpenQA, more like semi-related information, how we handle tickets and such. Okay. It also describes what we commonly use as the ticket workflow, like with workable, in progress, resolved, and so on, because this also applies to sub-projects unless defined differently. Also, it defines ticket categories where these are very specific. But also, it includes a template for defects, for example, where we can say, what's the observation? And then what's always important, anyone wanting to fix something, of course, they need to know, like, is it reproducible? How do we reproduce? And that's the same if it's for an OpenQA test failing, it's the same if you have a bug in OpenQA itself, and it's the same for manual testing. And then problem and suggestions what to do, and if possible, a workaround, which are useful if, let's come back to the example of there's a bug in OpenQA, maybe something is broken for now in OpenQA, but there is a workaround how to handle that, then this information is useful not only to the person wanting to fix a certain issue, but also to the workaround. There are also further decision steps working on test issues. So this is what I suggest to follow. Also, in particular for OpenQA test issue, follow. You have certain hypotheses. For each hypothesis, you find an experiment. Say, is it because test code changes? Is it integration settings, product, and so on. And the OpenQA tests wiki then references the current wiki. For example, it references our ticket workflow, what stage to steps, and then it also defines the categories that we create. If you're also interested, then it has a bigger blog, which is mainly by me, about thoughts about categorizing test results issue states within OpenQA. So, for example, what do we mean if we say a test is broken, or a test is failing, or a test is working? So, for example, a test is working should mean that, well, the test is doing what it should do. That means it can fail when it shows unexpected product behavior. That's the job of a test. Okay, but that's the difference between failing and working. Just I will not present the whole categorization scheme, but if you like to follow up with that, it's basically something which I came up with 5 years ago, and slowly, more or less, I'm also thinking about automating that into automated, where based on, like, what happens if we retry, what happens if we go back to the last good test, what happens if we go back to the last good build of the product and such, to come up with what is the likely outcome, and what's the suggested action, for example, file a bug report of it. Okay, so opinions, questions? Was there too much? Sorry about that. Because we mentioned these templates, we added this block test suite description, which is extracted from the test suite. Unfortunately, I also see that often people keep the default, which then doesn't make sense. For example, if I would report that ticket, which I won't do, it would say that base test suite is used for job template in YAML documents, and that's of no use to a bug assignee or anyone reading that bug report, because, well, it should describe to them what the test is doing, what it's intended to do, and why does it matter that it fails. And this is why there should be a proper test suite. Of course, you can change the text after the fact, afterwards here, before reporting it. But better would be to use the description field in OpenQA test suite settings. Don't know what I'm referring
You
to.
mean for the test itself?
For the test itself. So what we have seen is this test from the base template test suite. And as we can see, most of the other test suites don't have a description, which is not nice, but some others do have a description. For example, here for AppArmor, test AppArmor tool with the next. Or flash current firmware to micro SD card for Raspberry Pi, Raspberry only, or testing Audios installation with profile and such. That I consider much more helpful. So I encourage everybody to build a description test suite, and the same is possible for job template. You have job templates find in here, then you can see an entry where there is a description here as well. And then this description is then extracted in. Now about this reproducible, there's failed since at least this build. Again, template. Information that it should give is to say, well, maybe something broke in this build. And if you take a look at the last good build, the last good build is 71.2. That one was still fine. And it's a product issue. So we assume by taking a look at the change log between two builds, we would be able to find out what might have caused this. And you can bisect it, narrow it down.
Yeah, but excuse me. From one build to the other, I'm good with this, okay, but for the test can have changed completely. One thing,
Yes.
right? And shouldn't be, for example, producible and expected results.
Yep.
More something written from the QA here to make sense to someone who's gonna see it.
Absolutely, that's the point. This is what I would like to remind about, guys. This is a template. Yeah, you should adapt it. If you don't think this is helpful at all, delete it. Right? Fine. I mean, nobody's forcing you to put that section there, and maybe deleting it better. In that case, it would really depend on. The automation cannot be as smart as I hoped. Automation is never smarter than you are. And so what you need to take a look at is like, okay, it's referencing that one from this one. This makes sense. Yeah? But let's assume we would try
Does
to.
it? It's 2 months old.
Yes, that's still the most recent good build that we have in this history. And the point is also that for Deep 15.4, in between there had been a lot of changes where the product wouldn't even build, and that's fine. Yeah. So this is still the reference for us. But let me give you another example. For example, if we would report an issue about first boot, right? And then if I would, I think I should be able to show that. If I go to, let's the other one here. It says fails since at least build 41.2. And actually, it's not correct because the build 45.1, which was just the one, as a human, I know I'm a bit smarter here than the template. So I know that, wait, first boot, let me take a look. First boot is actually coming before the shutdown module. So the shutdown module, it failed, but the first boot module was passing just fine. So what I should replace in my template to say, well, actually that one was the last good. So it's not this one.
But that's for a different module, though, isn't it?
That's the point. That this test only failed in a different module, and the module didn't stop to show that. Sorry. Yeah, if I would call this for the failed first bootstrap, right? Then I would need to take a proper look at what's the last good. And if you say fails, this is just one part. If like I have seen that 10 times over in in the same build, multiple fails. Yeah, tell that. So, for example, if you would report a bug about accept license, you should really tell that, like, yeah, okay, this is failing in all architectures, this is failing in multiple test scenarios, not just a single test. Okay. So what else? Who knows this wiki or who has never seen this wiki?
I've seen it.
Okay.
I think the most known item here is this SLO here, right?
Right. I mean, you are a product owner, so that should be important to you. That's correct. So we have this level objectives to say, like, yeah, okay, an immediate ticket should really be acted upon within uh, defined time, and for low ticket. That's correct. That's also defined on this wiki here. Um, there are other things like the definition of done. So everyone working on tickets should be aware of that definition of done. I mean, maybe some people of you just know that from the colleagues and just know that from the practice, and you're teaching people on the go within tickets. That's completely fine. It's just that it's actually written down, so if you want to follow up with that, you can, right? For example, test modules that have been touched have updated metadata, for example, summary. I mean, this is part of a pull request reviewer to ensure, to ask people like, hey, you're writing this test module. Maybe it makes sense that take the maintainer role and maybe update it. Okay. So what else?
Is it
Yeah.
in this topic what we're doing is maintaining, so put the maintenance line to the mailing list we have on our team. So I guess that's fine, right? I mean, this
Yes.
mailing list will remain there, and yeah,
Yes.
I don't know if the department changes, probably that will not be applicable anymore. But I don't know. I think it's better to target, you know, sometimes a bunch of people that are responsible for something. It's easier to, finger point to, not finger pointing, but like let's say put responsibles to certain module, right?
Correct. And responsibles is plural, right? So,
Yeah.
it could be a single person, could be multiple persons, or it could be a group which you define by a mailing list. That's completely
Hmm.
fine. This line means test modules that have been touched have updated metadata. It just means if, let's say, if I write a test module and after 5 years, you like use the test module, rewrite it completely, and then I feel like, okay, I don't even know what this is about anymore, but I'm fine with the change, then maybe you should be the maintainer, right?
Hmm.
For the people having access to the internal SUSE wiki, I can also say, I mean, what I have is also my personal wiki page on the SUSE wiki, so perhaps also an OpenQA CLI workflow, and also what I think is a good approach for reviews of bugs that are resolved, fixed, not verified. I mean, it feels to me like this is something that we currently need to remind about, that resolved fixed sounds like, yeah, okay, so the bug doesn't affect customers, which is not necessarily true at that point. We don't know that yet, right? So we only know that, well, there is an intended fix somewhere. It could be in a GitHub pull request that is not even merged yet. So it's nice to, well, okay, we are talking about QA best practices. So what I'm referring to, often a bit jokingly, but please get too serious, but I'm saying QA rule number 1, who knows what I'm saying? QA rule number 1.
Irregular bugs tickets.
So I'm not sure, but my thought would be acceptance tests are important. Like you need to know if the thing you did somehow works.
Anton, you know that for sure. What's rule number 1 for QA engineering?
Don't trust anyone.
Exactly, don't trust anybody. So if I'm telling you, yeah, the bug is fixed, don't trust me. Okay? Check it yourself. Ask me, are you sure you conducted a test? And then all of that, what you mentioned, is important to add. Like if you define an acceptance test, you can follow that and you can execute that. So yeah, don't trust anybody. That's rule number 1 for a good QA engineer. And if somebody tells you the bug is resolved fixed, what do? Well, check, is it really fixed?
I was trying to follow this rule even before I come to SUSE.
Have a sane amount of paranoia.
Should try to follow this rule in real life.
Don't do it too much with your life partner.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Maybe that summarizes all QA best practices. So Janis, don't trust anybody. Does that answer all your questions? Are we good now?
No.
Okay.
But it was a good one, yeah.
But this actually means that you shouldn't trust this statement too.
Yes, that's correct. Well, I would say one can build trust, right? And of course, you work with some kind of working hypothesis and some kind of. So, for example, I would say if in a bug report for resolved fixed there is someone pasting an OpenQA job URL and saying with that it's verified fixed, then what I would do is I would maybe click on the OpenQA job URL and I would then, okay, the overall job status is, and then I'm trusting that this job, which was previously failing and reported that bug, someone reported it resolved fixed. Test at this time was not yet green because you're not yet there in the product. But eventually with a new build, which included the fix, job turned green, then I'm trusting that the test shows that the bug is actually verified to be. It could be that, someone removed test module in time, and this is why it's turning all this. Yeah, bit of sane amount of paranoia.
You know what makes me this?
Well, there's
Janis first.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be short. Like I make this becomes a little bit philosophical, but with the trust thing issue, I think the only thing that you can trust is your processes. If the processes are proven that works, this is what you should trust. For everyone can be different, and yeah, and this is what we have to review. And
I think trust automated processes better than
not automated. All the processes. For example, in manual testing, for example, something that we didn't have time to talk about, there is no clear objective. So there is no a checklist, for example. So you know that these people have done these things and we can go on.
Yep.
It's just, it's just, okay, I did some manual testing, I check a few things, okay, works. Yeah, it was, who wants to talk?
Chris?
Yeah, well, I have a similar thought. Like, I think you need a certain amount of trust because you don't have a completely closed chain of evidence, right? You may need to define which parts you trust somebody to check on your behalf.
Yeah.
Like you don't have every single step of it in Git, for example, normally.
Right.
Like if you really want to make don't trust anyone rule, you would have to have a perfect trace of evidence, right? And for example, you would have to record every single step you take and then verify if the person taking the steps had an ID ready to prove that nobody else did it.
Yeah, at this point I would say the shortcut for anyone doing QA is what's the approach there? In QA engineer, you exercise the product, you conduct workflows that are realistic, workflows that resemble what customers would do. And if you redo these steps and then everything works out fine as expected, then you say like, okay, there is no problem anymore. And that could be that a bug that you reported earlier was actually not really fixed, but maybe is shadowed by something different. Or let's say the bug was never fixed because the package that is affected was removed and replaced by another package that is filling the workflow. Fine. I mean, effectively that fixes the bug on a completely different high level. But I as a user, I as a customer, my stuff, that's what I care about, not that line of code fix.
Well, you might not have the exact same system preference, right? Like
exactly.
you
It's
can
not
make
the
the
same
case
system,
where
Yep.
you verify it and you couldn't literally say this is exactly reproduced, but you should assume based on certain criteria that it is verified in that case.
Yep. All right. Any more things they would like to add?
I have some topic to discuss, but it's pretty big and not related directly to the current objective. So
okay, maybe that's a good teaser then for a new proposal of another topic that should I record a proposal here on a workshop topic? Find the time.
Again, I'm not sure that it's so big to cover like the whole meetup. But yeah.
Normally we use the time usefully, so completely fine. And or actually, okay. Thank you, Anton, for bringing that up. So let me shortly present to you what we have planned for 2 weeks. So for the next week, which will be the first Friday of a month, that will be the SUSE QE Tools roadmap meeting for 2021-12. And after that, we will have an open conversation meeting. So if you have smaller topics where you think like, yeah, okay, maybe not cover in a complete workshop session, but you want to make use of our awesome group of people here, then this is the perfect opportunity you can do. Anton, would that fit for you?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So with that, let's say goodbye and see you again in the next. Bye.